Welcome to our channel where we delve into the darkest corners of the human experience and bring you true horror stories that will chill you to the bone. Tonight we venture deep into the unforgiving wilderness, a place where shadows dance and unseen eyes watch from the darkness. We have three terrifying tales of campers who found themselves hunted by something sinister, something lurking just beyond the reach of their campfires. Viewer discretion is advised. Our first story takes us deep into the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, where a young couple, Emily and Jake, decided to spend a long weekend camping, eager to escape the noise and distractions of city life. They had been planning this trip for months, dreaming of the peace and tranquility that only nature could provide. They found a secluded clearing, miles from any marked trail, a picture-perfect slice of untouched wilderness. The air was crisp, and the only sounds were the rustling leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Little did they know they were stepping into a nightmare. As the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows through the ancient trees, a sense of unease settled over Emily. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. It wasn't anything she could put her finger on, just a prickling at the back of her neck, a feeling of being watched. The sensation was so strong that she found herself constantly glancing over her shoulder. Jake, ever the pragmatist, dismissed her concerns as nerves, attributing it to the unfamiliar surroundings. He assured her that it was just the isolation playing tricks on her mind. Nightfall brought with it a chorus of unfamiliar sounds. The rustling of leaves took on a sinister quality. Every snapping twig sounded like approaching footsteps. The forest seemed to come alive with unseen threats. Emily found herself jumping at shadows, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She tried to shake off the feeling, to focus on the warmth of the fire and the comforting presence of Jake, but the feeling of dread only intensified. It was as if the darkness itself was closing in on them. Later that night, nestled inside their tent, the flimsy fabric a fragile barrier between them and the darkness that pressed in from all sides, Emily woke with a gasp. Her heart raced as she tried to make sense of what had startled her. A pair of eyes, glowing with an unnatural intensity, stared at her through the mesh window of the tent. They seemed to pierce through her very soul. They were too high off the ground to belong to any animal she could identify, and they held a cold, calculating intelligence that sent shivers down her spine. She scrambled back in terror, clutching at Jake, who was instantly alert, grabbing his flashlight and shining it towards the source of Emily's terror. But the eyes were gone. The forest seemed to mock them with its silence. The forest stood silent and still, the only sound the frantic beating of their hearts. The oppressive silence was almost unbearable. Jake, though shaken, tried to rationalize the experience, suggesting it was just an owl or some other nocturnal creature, its eyes reflecting the firelight. But Emily knew better. She had seen the malice in those eyes, the hunger that lurked beneath their chilling gaze. It was a look that she would never forget. As dawn approached, painting the sky with the promise of a new day, they packed up their campsite, their movements frantic, their eyes darting nervously into the surrounding woods. Every rustle and shadow seemed to hold a new threat. The drive back to civilization was a blur of adrenaline and fear. They couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. The unseen watcher had claimed its victory not in blood and violence, but in the indelible terror that it had seared into their souls. The memory of those eyes would haunt them forever. Our next story takes us to the vast wilderness of Yusede National Park, where a group of friends, eager to celebrate their graduation, decided to embark on a week-long backpacking trip. They were young, they were full of life, and they believed this adventure would be the first of many. They were tragically mistaken. The group consisted of 4 friends: Mark, the natural leader, always eager for a challenge; Jessica, the level-headed one, the voice of reason, Chris, the joker, always ready with a witty remark, and Sarah, the quiet observer, taking it all in with wide, curious eyes. Their journey started with laughter and excitement, the weight of their backpacks a small price to pay for the freedom that awaited them. As they ventured deeper into the park, the trail grew steeper, the air thinner, the laughter grew less frequent, replaced by heavy breathing and the rhythmic thud of hiking boots against the hard-packed earth. One evening, as they set up camp near a secluded lake, the first whispers began. It started subtly, a faint rustling in the undergrowth, a sigh of wind through the trees. But it wasn't the wind. It was something else, something watching them from the shadows, its voice a low guttural murmur that sent shivers down their spines. Mark, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as their imaginations running wild, the result of exhaustion and the unfamiliar surroundings. But as the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, circling the campsite, weaving their way into their minds, planting seeds of doubt and fear. Jessica, usually the calm and collected one, found herself on edge, her eyes constantly scanning the tree line, searching for the source of the unsettling sounds. Chris, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a nervous tension, tried to mask his fear with forced humor, but his laughter rang hollow in the still night air. Sarah, always the most sensitive of the group, retreated into herself, her gaze distant, her body trembling. She felt a presence, cold and malevolent, watching them from the darkness, its whispers weaving a tapestry of fear around them. The next morning, they broke camp quickly, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the lake. But the whispers followed them, echoing through the trees, a constant reminder that they were not alone. The whispers were turning them against each other, their once unbreakable bond fracturing under the strain of unseen terror. The forest, once a place of adventure and excitement, had become a labyrinth of fear and paranoia. Each step they took seemed to echo with the whispers, growing louder and more menacing. The friends who had once been so close now eyed each other with suspicion, their trust eroded by the relentless, unseen presence. The shadows seemed to close in around them, and the once bright future they had envisioned now seemed distant and unattainable. They realized that this journey would change them forever, leaving scars that would never fully heal. Our final tale takes us to the desolate plains of Joshua Tree National Park, where a lone hiker named Daniel sought solace and solitude under the vast, star-studded sky. He was drawn to the park's rugged beauty and the promise of peace it held. He was an experienced outdoorsman, comfortable in the company of nature, having spent countless nights under the open sky, seeking a temporary escape from the complexities of human interaction. The desert, with its stark, unyielding landscape, seemed the perfect place to clear his mind, but he found something far more sinister than solitude. As Daniel set up his campsite, the setting sun casting long, grotesque shadows across the landscape, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He felt a sense of unease settle over him, a prickling at the back of his neck that he couldn't ignore. The silence of the desert was different from the silence of the forest. It was a vast, empty silence, pregnant with unseen menace. It was as if the desert itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. He pushed the feeling aside, attributing it to the lingering stress he had hoped to leave behind. He tried to focus on the beauty around him. Night descended, blanketing the desert in an oppressive darkness. The stars, usually a source of wonder and inspiration, seemed to mock Daniel with their indifference, their distant light offering no warmth, no comfort. He retreated to his tent, the thin fabric a meager defense against the encroaching darkness. He hoped for sleep to come quickly. As he lay there listening to the blood pounding in his ears, he became aware of a faint scratching sound coming from outside his tent. It was a rhythmic sound, like claws scraping against the nylon, slow and deliberate. His heart pounded in his chest, his breath catching in his throat. He fumbled for his flashlight, his hand trembling as he pointed it towards the source of the sound. The beam of light illuminated a pair of eyes, glowing with an eerie green light, staring intently at him through the thin fabric of the tent. They were unlike any eyes he had ever seen before, devoid of any discernible pupil or iris, just two orbs of pure malevolent energy. Terror, raw and primal, surged through Daniel. He scrambled back in his tent, his mind reeling, his body frozen in a paralysis of fear. The scratching continued, relentless, determined. The eyes never left his, their intensity growing with each passing moment. He could feel their gaze boring into him, stripping away his defenses, exposing his deepest fears. He knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that whatever lurked outside his tent was not there to simply observe. It was there to hunt. Time lost all meaning as Daniel cowered in his tent, the scratching a constant reminder of the unseen terror that held him captive. Then, as abruptly as it began, the scratching stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with unspoken threat. Slowly, cautiously, Daniel unzipped his tent and peered out into the darkness. He had escaped, but the encounter had changed him. The desert, once a place of solace, had become a landscape of nightmares. The memory of those eyes would haunt him forever, a reminder of the unknown horrors that lurk in the dark. The desert night, once a sanctuary, had revealed its true terrifying nature, and Daniel would never forget the eyes in the dark. He had escaped, but the encounter had changed him. He had escaped, but the encounter had changed him. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling tales from the dark corners of our world. The wilderness holds many mysteries, and not all of them are benevolent. Until next time, sleep tight and keep your eyes peeled for the unseen terrors that lurk just beyond your